over the review period exceeded $400 million. His integrity issues cannot be resolved, partly because of the baffling complexity of his personal financial affairs. His 3 personal companies were involved in a very high volume of transactions, averaging over 4 per banking day during the period of review, including many substantial intercompany payments, and including over $4.5 million of so-called cardless cash deposits made over a 3-month period into his bank account by depositors whose identity remains unknown to the Commission.
Now, I know that you know that this is one messenger you don't take any information from. This is one messenger. If you ask him for the truth, he'll probably turn around and ask you what name, so. No, sir. This is not a man for walk after and take information from. So, we are going to check to see whether or not all of what he said he read in the Integrity Commission's report, or as usual, he's making it up along as he goes, thinking that somehow the whole way out here, idiot, we don't like read, and so him can feed us and tell us anything. Particularly the comrades. Them think the comrades are my idiot, you know. Never hears a socialist and a fool. Him never hear that. Anyhow, let us continue with our series in looking into the Integrity Commission's report, what it said, and what it means, and of course, any lies or misrepresentation or whatever you want to call it. We will attempt to debunk them along the way. So, welcome to Jamaica 411, where lies die and truth prevails. If you're here with me for the first time, welcome. Do consider subscribing as well as giving the video a thumbs up, share, and leave your comments. For my wonderful and excellent subscribers and my regular viewers, welcome back. So nice to have you supporting the channel as usual. You know you're appreciated. I am so busy making video these days, I can't get a chance to even give you a thumbs up in the comment section, but you must forgive me. I am trying to get the information out as quickly as the lies are told. I have to research and do all of that to bring the information to you, so you must forgive me. So you know the ropes, so you want to go ahead and give the video a thumbs up from now. Share with everyone you know who needs to hear this message, and then we will resume. So, with all of that out the way, let us continue with business. So, what I'm about to describe for you is Imperium, when it began, why it began, the assets that was transferred to Imperium, as well as I'm about to tell you now, based on the investigation that was done by the Integrity Commission, the assets that Imperium holds. And this information is based on the statutory declaration that Andrew Holness had submitted for 2021-2022 as well, and their investigation confirming what he said were the assets. They were able to confirm such and confirm the source of income from the various financial institutions from which the assets were bought, through which the assets were bought as well, and from the accounts that the money was taken from. You follow all of that, right? Wonderful. Now, the thing I want us to pay very close attention to is not so much the stocks and shares. We should pay attention to that, but we need to look at the cash money. How much money is in the bank, right? Remember, these stocks and bonds are something that you buy over a period of time. You sell them and you buy more. You sell them and buy more. It's an investment. So you buy and sell. Your income though is one thing, and how much you have in the bank, because your income and what you have in the bank is what you have available to you in cash to buy other assets, including bonds and shares. You follow that? But it's important that we take a look at the amount of cash. And the reason for that, of course, is that the Director of Investigation has not really been forthcoming in terms of how much of what he's telling us are the assets, are stocks and shares, and how much cash. So you are left with the impression when you see certain transaction that this must be cash. And therefore, what you might hear being hinted that could be kind of maybe money laundering, right? So right here we see that the bank balance was $212,000 in 2021, and that increased to $3.7 million in 2022. So he has available to him through Imperium his salary that he's getting from government, plus this $3.7 million to buy whatever he wants to buy in cash. At 5.845, it says the financial statements before the Director of Investigation for Imperium for the years 2021 and 2022 indicate that the company held financial assets in the form of stocks, bonds, bank balances, and taxation recoverable as follows. So you know what the financial assets are now, right? It is stocks, bonds, bank balances, and of course real estate property. They left that out. So in table 10 it says Imperium financial assets. They have $133 million worth of stocks which were acquired through NCB Capital Market and Barita. In 2022 it was $125,000, seems as if it lost value. We also have in 2021 the US bond, that is the NFE bond, that was worth $16.8 million, and it lost value again in 2022. And the bank balances was $212,000, and it went up to $3.7 million. The taxation recoverable, they are saying from the financials, is $629,000, and the amount in 2022 is 1.3. But here's the thing. All of these that you're seeing here are any dividend that is paid on these assets, and for the bank balance, any interest that is paid. They are all taxed at source. We have in Jamaica what is known as withholding tax. Once you pay your withholding tax on your interest in the bank, you don't have to pay tax on it again to the taxman. I am not quite sure what this $629,000 and this $1.3 million is about, unless what they are saying is that was what was actually paid, because you have to gross it up. Remember, when you're doing accounts, you have to gross it up, and show what the gross was, what the withholding tax was, and then what you collected, right? Okay, let's continue. The foregoing representations in respect of Imperium's financial assets, coupled with the circumstances surrounding the formation of the said company, necessitated an inquiry concerning Mr. Holness's personal contribution thereto. The financial statements for the year 2021 showed a primary shareholder contribution of $54 million. Now, every time you see this $54 million and the dollar sign, you get the impression that this is cash money they are talking about. Isn't that true? But let us continue. With the company being wholly owned by Mr. Holness, it necessarily follows that he is the primary shareholder. So he contributed $54 million to the assets of Imperium, right? That's what this is saying. Let us now see what that $54 million is about. Is it cash or is it stocks and bonds? So it goes on to say, in Mr. Holness's September 29, 2023 explanation, he clarified the source of the capital injection amounting to $54 million he made to Imperium as primary shareholder as follows. The question was, reference is made to the financial statement submitted by you for Imperium Holdings Limited for 2021. What is the source of the $54 million classified as capital injection of the primary shareholder? So what did Andrew say? Source of funds for capital injection of the primary shareholder of $54 million. Financial statement. He goes on to say capital injection of the primary shareholder represents capital contributions made from the personal resources of Andrew Holness, the primary shareholder, from the start of operations of Imperium investment in November 2020 to December 2021. That's how long he has been making contributions over the period. So it's not a one-off thing he's saying here. In the 2021 financial statement of Imperium Investments Holding Limited, capital injection totaling $54 million represents financial assets acquired, converted, or liquidated over the last 3 years and transferred to Imperium Investment Holdings Limited from the personal resources of the primary shareholder. This was explained to the Commission in a detailed letter dated March 6, 2023, and then come back and ask the man the same question again. So anyway, they went on to say, for context, the excerpt of the March 6, 2023 letter is detailed below. So this is the details of the same thing I'm going to ask the man about that they already had in their possession. So it says at 5.8.48, the DI provides hereunder an excerpt from the letter referenced by Mr. Holness. So let me make it a little bigger for you. So here it says, details of the shareholders' account of $179 million and the sources of fund. So he's telling them what the source of fund is for this $179 million that was deposited in Imperium's account, right? It says assets transferred from related company, ADMAT Incorporated. Cash and cash equivalents of $23.7 million. Remember, we are interested in the cash, right? So we're writing that down. Write it down, please. $23.7 million, right? And residential property, that's the one in Shenstone, that's a mansion in Beverly Hills, $86 million. The interest in real estate, $15 million. That interest in real estate suggests that he owns it with other people. And the total capital contributions from ADMAT is $125 million. You get that now, right? Then it says shareholder cash. Well, before I get to that, let me read what it says is the source of funds. It's very fine print, I'm reading it for you. These assets and the source of funding have been established since their acquisition and reported in my statutory declarations and in ADMAT's incorporated financial statements, right? So you must say, look here, ADMAT has been there from 2008. All of that has been checked out already. So I don't have to go tell you about no source of income for that. Go and go look upon them, the statutory declaration. That's more or less in a nice way I was saying. So here it goes now. Capital injection directly from primary shareholder. And it says cash, $23 million. So it seems as if there's another $23 million. Let us make a note of that. So this one now is $23 million, $23.9 million, right? And this is from Andrew. And the other 23.7 is from ADMAT. That was closed. It says here, this amount represents cash invested in Imperium Investments Holdings Limited to acquire stocks and make other related investments. This is funded by bank balances at the beginning of the period under review, September 3, 2020 to December 31, 2021, as declared on my September 2020 declarations of 19.8 million Jamaican dollars and the income reported in my 2021 declarations of 15 million Jamaican dollars, totaling 35.6 million Jamaican dollars. If you recall watching that video that I did called Statutory Declarations, I did make that point that the income that he had plus the cash that he had in the bank when you add the two together, it was 35.6 million, and that was what he would have had to spend and do anything he wanted with it. Everything else was tied up in stocks and bonds and real estate. You follow all of that? Great. So he took 23 million now and put it in Imperium, and it's coming from his bank account and his salary, is what he's saying here. Good. Now he said now cash equivalents. Now what they call equivalent stocks and bonds. So NCB capital market account number so and so, some shares from Transjam, ordinary shares, were transferred, and they were $10 million worth, right? Then the NCB capital market, some were Transjam shares, except these were preference shares, were transferred to Imperium. Another set of shares now are something called repo. I must go look it up, It's in US dollar. That was also transferred. So he had some assets that was, as I assume now, in his name. And he transferred those to Imperium as well. So it's no longer in his name. And he gave as the source of funds, these financial assets were held in investment account number so and so at NCB Capital Market in my name. See, I was correct. In September 2020, I took a decision to consolidate or transfer all of my personal assets to a locally registered company, Imperium Investments Holdings Limited. I also decided to close out ADMAT Incorporated, an overseas company, and transfer its assets and interests to Imperium Investments Holding Limited. The source of funding has been established since their acquisition and declared on my statutory declarations from 2019 to 2021. That is the source of income. The last bit he has here, total cash. Oh, when you add up the stocks, you get a total cash equivalence that he called it, $30 million, $30.5 million. And then when you add that cash injection that he made from his 35 million that he had in 2020 or 2019, 2020, and then you add the cash equivalents, the stocks and bonds that he had transferred, it total, he said, $54 million. So that is what the capital injection was into Imperium. When you add up the assets coming from ADMAT, the cash that he put it of 23.9 million, the shares that he had transferred from his name into Imperium, and you add up everything, you get a total capital contribution of 179.8 million. You see that now. Now, why am I taking you through Imperium? Because Imperium is where it all began. Unless we can establish the source of funding for Imperium, then everything that follows after is legit. In other words, as long as Imperium's source of income can be verified as legitimate money, not coming from money laundering or anything of that description, but from verifiable assets and cash that he earned, then when this company gives any money to any other company that is related to, says legitimate money, that's the reason why I took you through all of this pain. I hope you understand. Okay, great. So you see we're sorting out this thing now. So having established the source of funds for the capital injection as well as all the assets being held by Imperium, we needn't spend any more time with it. Let us go and check now the relationship between Imperium and the other two companies that Andrew Holness opened as well. What were they open for? We know Imperium was open to hold his assets. What about the others? But you know what? Just to be sure, in case of any doubting Thomases, that these are legit, let us read what the Director of Investigation said he found when he examined each of these investments in turn. So the DI continues. The evidence from the duly authorized officer at National Commercial Bank Capital Market indicates that Mr. Holness transferred Trans-Jam Highway ordinary shares and preference shares to Imperium. So he's confirming that this was what happened. That is what the capital market, NCB capital market, has on their register, that the owner now of those shares is Imperium and it was transferred from Holness. It is important to note that the transfer of the reference shares was reflected as dispositions by Mr. Holness and acquisitions by Imperium at market value to the tune of 15 million. The total cost of acquisition by Holness was 14.9 million. So what does this mean? This is what they would probably call arm's length deal. He didn't just give it to them, he sold it to them. He bought it for 14.9 and sold it to them for 15. So he earned, I think it's $128,000 on the deal, right? So that's what he wanted you to know. So that's that. Now we come to the big lie. 5.872, the cardless cash deposits. I have to deal with this one before I continue with the other companies. It says here, the Director of Investigation finds it necessary to highlight the finding from the examination of Mr. Holness's Jamaica National Bank account referenced above. The transaction history associated with Jamaica National Bank account number 85 and provided by the duly authorized officer at Jamaica National Bank indicates that between May and July 2020, 20 deposits classified as cardless cash deposits totaling 4.5 million were made to this account. Now, you remember at the PMP's press conference, Mark Golding saying something about this, right? Raising the specter of suspicion that there were persons depositing money into his account. And those persons' identity are not known to this day. You recall that? All right, let's read and see if what he said was true or just another of his damn lies. Or you think I salt him salt? Every time him open him mouth to say the truth, as also lies come out of it. You think that happened to him? Poor man. Anyway, let us read and see if this time around truth is coming out of his mouth. So it says here, let me make it bigger for you. So it says here, the evidence also shows that on September 16, 2020, an RTGS withdrawal, that is through the online, of $6 million was made from this account. So 20 transactions were going into the account using the cardless cash deposits, totaling 4.5 million, right? 20 deposits over a 3-month period. May, so that's June, July, that's a 2-month period, right? And all of a sudden, September 16, 6 million was withdrawn. And the DI is saying, the Director of Investigation is in possession of further evidence from the duly authorized officer of Jamaica National Bank, which explains that cardless cash deposits are deposits made through automated teller machines by members and their agents. The evidence further shows that if the deposits are made by an agent of the member, the depositor's identity is unknown, as was the case with the deposits made to Mr. Holness's account. It looked like a yes or mark stop and I never read no further. Because to read further, he would have arrived at the truth, and apparently that is something that he's not interested in. So naturally, the Director of Investigation had to query Mr. Holness to find out who the depositor or depositors were, since they were not able to ascertain that from the bank. So here it is at 5.873. On February 28, 2024, that's this year, the Director of Investigation put certain questions to Mr. Holness concerning these deposits. Mr. Holness explained in his response dated March 27, 2024, that the deposits were made by bearers and explained the source as set out below. the question was asked, what was the source of funds listed above classified as cardless cash deposits? The answer, source of funds for Jamaica National Jamaican dollar account 85. 1. Reimbursement from Norman Brown, shareholder of Estatebridge Limited, in relation to preparatory expenditure undertaken on the Waycliffe development. Income from rental of property at Mona. And it says for question 3, what was the purpose of the deposits listed above, classified as cardless cash deposits? And the answer, the purpose of the deposits was payment rental of property at Mona. Secondly, pursuant to Clause 4 of the Land Development Agreement dated the 1st of July 2020, provided as an Appendix 17 to September 2020 declarations, which states, so we are now quoting from the agreement with Estates Holding Limited. At last, we come to the second company. And I want you to pay close attention to what I am going to read now, because this is the first time that we'll be hearing about Estatebridge Holdings Limited, which is the second company that Holness opened, if I recall correctly, in 2020. Now, we will see the reason why this company was opened and what is its purpose based upon what is read from the agreement. All right, you with me? Great. So here is a DI quoting from Holness's response. It says here, the developer, Estate Holdings Limited, has agreed to pay to the owner, ADMAT Incorporated, the sum of $6 million upon signing hereof, to be apportioned as follows. So let me pause right here to ensure that you understand what is happening here. It says here that the owner is ADMAT Incorporated. So ADMAT had owned this property. Remember, it was listed as interest in a property to the tune of $15 million. This is the property. So this property is owned by ADMAT, or at least it was at that time. It would have been, of course, transferred to Estatebridge. So what you're looking at here, it's a land development agreement. This land now is going to be developed, meaning they are going to be building something on the land. I understand there were 4 townhouses. I believe I heard that from Zara Burton. So the developer now of this property that Holness has an interest in through Imperium is Estatebridge Holdings Limited, a company that Holness started around about 2020. So we can now come to the conclusion that the purpose for which Estatebridge Holdings Limited was incorporated was to develop this piece of land that Holness owned through ADMAT, right? Indirectly through ADMAT. And it's now owned by Imperium. So they have a development agreement, and at Clause 4, they were supposed to pay on signing of the agreement $6 million. And it was supposed to have been as compensation, $4 million in compensation for expenses undertaken by the owner to prepare preliminary drawings, subdivide the land, preparing design of sewage system, legal fees, and other costs of application to the Supreme Court to modify restrictive covenants. At B, they were supposed to have paid back $2 million, representing an advance from the developer to the owner to be refunded upon transfer to the owner, the unit, as stipulated. So, in other words, what is this now? This is a common thing that happens with developers. They don't want to outlay money to buy the land. So what they do, they partner with the owners of the land to develop townhouses or apartments on that land. And the agreement usually is that they would give them some kind of a cash advance, and when the development is over, they may get a unit or 2. So in this case, it's 4 apartments. Maybe they said when they sell the apartments, they will give him his share of the deal. Maybe it's 1 apartment. You follow me? It seemed as if what he was supposed to have gotten in cash was $2 million, because it's basically a small development. So this is what this was about. So he's saying that 6 million was supposed to have been paid, and evidently it was being paid over a period of time by Mr. Norman Brown, who is a shareholder of Estatebridge Limited. So the unnamed and unidentified person who was making these 20 deposits in Mr. Holness's Jamaica National Bank account, number 85, was Norman Brown, the shareholder of Estatebridge Limited, making his payment as clearly agreed between himself and Holness in installments. Right? He paid 4.5 million into the account, and he still owes 1 million and something up to that point at any rate. So I want you to listen again to what it was that Mark Golding said, and then I'll come back and I will discuss it some more.
Including many substantial intercompany payments, and including over $4.5 million of so-called cardless cash deposits made over a 3-month period into his bank account by depositors whose identity remains unknown to the Commission.
You heard that. How can anybody believe anything that comes out of the mouth of this man? And I'm convinced, that there is something mentally wrong with him, I think that there's something mentally wrong with him, because it's only somebody who is mental would go out and talk and tell lies about something that you can prove to be a lie. Something is seriously wrong with this man, and we need to have a medical report on him. See it there, right before your eyes. Reimbursement from Norman Brown, shareholder of Estatebridge Limited. And why was he making these deposits? To pay rental for the Mona property and to make payments, installment payments on the money that he owes Holness, that he had outlaid, that was agreed upon. So what it is that the DI had to say about this, I wanted to look and see what he said about what Holness said. Look closely below B, where it says $2 million. Look below it and look at what it was that the DI said. Investment in bond. In other words, he moved right along. He moved right along. Didn't even bother discuss it any further, which is that was not his usual style. Usually come out and tell you so and so. But because the person was identified, if nobody look no further, because I know him going on a rabbit hole. He moved right along, but the hungry and desperate Mark Golding, that Judas and traitor, he had to go into the report and come tell you a lie. How can he not know that the person was identified? And even if he's going to say it's not a lie, he was damn careless. And I hope the Prime Minister sue his ass, good and proper too. Now let us focus and diligently search for all these millions and millions, 400 millions we hear Mark Golding claim that these companies were transferring between themselves. How much time per day, 4 times per business day, and all them kind of something. That sounds so incredible that. But let me go and read and see if maybe at last some truth can drip out of his mouth. So we come to the third company. It's small in terms of assets, but we see that a lot of money was being transferred from the, well, let me say that tentatively, because even though we're seeing dollar figures, remember, there are lots of assets such as stocks and bonds that they are using to secure loans from financial institutions. So whenever you see a transfer from Imperium to any of these other companies, you can relatively assume, since it has such a low cash balances in the accounts, that what you're seeing being transferred are stocks and bonds to the sister companies. And since we know that the sister companies are borrowing from financial institutions, and in the case of Positive Media, from a friend, Green Emerald, one of Holness's friends, loaned the money and he was paid back, evidently with interest. So we are now going to look at what is being called 400 and something dollars worth of interplay between the the various companies. Now, the first thing I want to bring your attention to is 5.8.142, where it says the duration during the course of the forensic examination. The examiner data mined a total of 33 bank statements relating to 3 companies' accounts activities within 3 financial institutions, namely NCB, Capital Market, and Berita. The data mining of those 33 bank accounts showed that there were 753 deposits into the 9 accounts and 1,607 withdrawals from said accounts. A total of 473 million intercompany deposits and 427 million intercompany withdrawals were analyzed. So this is what you hear Mark Golden talking about, the $400+ million that is being passed around between the companies. So for once, something came out of his mouth, which we can say, yes, see it here. But the problem, though, is what is the point? Even if $427 million is passed around the companies, so what? The companies have money, assets, stocks, and bonds, right? And they are related. So if this company wants to send money, whether cash or stocks, to another company, and that company want to send back money to this company, and the company want to send money to that one, what is the point? It's not relevant because the money has already been established to be legitimate money, and what they're doing is passing the money between the companies. Every single one of these companies were borrowing, and only 2 of them has assets that can be collateralized. That will be Estatebridge. It has a lot of land that they're developing. And then you have Imperium, which has the house of Shenstone and stocks and bonds that it can collateralize. So if one of the other companies, or especially the one at Estatebridge, that is developing a lot of land, they are going to need money to develop that lot of land. So if Imperium lends money to them, or lends stocks and bonds to them so that they can go and borrow on it. We don't know if that is what takes place because we were not told. This is an inflammatory piece of information that has been put out by the Integrity Commission without any details. And it says it is designed to create an excitement and suspicion when it already cleared the monies that these companies have as perfectly legitimate. All of this money that is being passed around belongs to the 3 companies. The only time money came from outside was a loan to Positive Media by one of its customers and a friend of Holness, apparently. He loaned the company $20 million, right? And that was money that came from outside in. That money was paid back with interest. I mean, they got 24 million, so it must be with interest. So the only thing we need to remember about these 3 companies is that Estatebridge is developing the lot of land. Imperium has the stocks and bonds, including the house at Beverly Hills. And Positive Media is a public relations company, which was making money and doing business. So all of this that is you're seeing here, $473 million between the company. I don't understand what is the big deal. What is the big deal? I don't get it. The company's monies are legitimate and they are lending money to them one another. So what? How can you launder money between your own company? How can Imperium, which the DI established, has legitimate money from legitimate sources, if it want to give its money over to the other companies and it's as its stocks and bonds 1 million times, how does that affect anything? So what? Obviously, they must be doing it for a reason. And since the other companies were borrowing and had very little assets, it's obvious that Imperium was sending over their stocks and bonds, and that is the dollar value that you're looking at. Holness, when he was asked by the DI about the money coming out of Positive Media, he said it was money that was not being used by Positive Media. And so Imperium borrowed the money. Of course, they're going to borrow the money to buy stocks and bonds, right? And this is how this guy has been making money, and he has been making money, right? When you look at his statutory declaration, he has been making money. Anyway, I hope I have cleared up everything for you, at least for now. We still have 2 more topics, the conflict of interest and taxation. So until next time, thank you so much for being with me. Take good care of yourselves and walk good.